All right. Welcome back to Dynamic Advancement, the foremost authority for cyber workforce development. So we're doing something different today. I follow a couple of cybersecurity guys over at AT&T, and there's this video I've been holding on to in my playlist for a while where they explore the question, is there such a thing of entry-level cybersecurity jobs? I say no. What would you say to that question?
I will double down on your no.
Doubling down. So, but I don't want you to take our word for it. We're going to take their word for it, and we're just going to do a reaction video and add our insights as we go through. So without further ado, I'm pushing that play button. Let's go.
Let's get it.
There's no such thing as an entry-level job in cybersecurity.
Ooh, I agree.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Jonathan, you got a story about entry-level jobs and what skills you need for day one? Do you want to go into it?
Yes, definitely. So we usually do kind of vulnerability stories and things that are being hacked, and I thought for those watching us that might be interested in the field that might not be in it yet, I found this blog post by Daniel Missler about what kind of the expectations of a potential hiring manager will be on day one, right? Like how do you get, first of all, to day one to get hired, and what are the things that they might be looking for? So
how do you get to day one?
And this kind of ties to, we've done stories about that, what they're calling the skill gap in cybersecurity, where in 10 years there'll be millions of jobs that are free for everybody to take, this person, I think he's a researcher, or at least he's a security person, but he has other articles about that very same thing, how there is this gap. So, and in this article particularly, he's kind of trying to detail one thing that at least I got from that is that there is really no entry-level position in cybersecurity because cybersecurity itself is not a field, right? That it's there are a lot of other things you do within the cybersecurity world that, and I think that's one of the things that if someone comes to me like, oh, I'm interested in cybersecurity, I'm like, well, what? Like, what is it that you're interested in?
Yes.
Because you could be doing any potential thing underneath that. And actually, I brought there's the cybersecurity domain mapping that I found very interesting that kind of breaks down like every possible job that you could end up in cybersecurity, and is overwhelming, right? So if someone in this entry-level world comes in here and says, I want to do cybersecurity, the first thing you need to figure out is, okay, on what?
This is interesting. I'm not on this list. I don't see any incident response.
There is on the bottom left. There is security operations and
there it is. Okay.
Incident response
Security
investigations, forensics. My teams, those awareness, those on the user education.
So let's run that back and take a look at that list real quick. Let's go back a little bit. Where we at with that list? Boom. All right. So this is actually a pretty good list. To his point, right? I know you get this all the time. People come to you, hey, JJ, man, I want to get into cybersecurity.
Yes, all the time.
Right?
To the uninitiated, cybersecurity is the umbrella. It is a catch-all.
It's a catch-all, right? So I don't think they understand, folks who say, I want to get into cybersecurity. Well, okay, which domain?
Exactly.
There's about 10 of them if you look at all of them here, right? And then each domain kind of has its own subdomain, maybe it's its own individual role, right? So it's, all right, do you, in my opinion, I feel like you think you want to get into cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Right? But are you trying to get into cybersecurity because you want to get into a profession and grow into these type of roles, or are you just chasing a check?
It could be a little bit of both. I think that when someone that is not extremely knowledgeable about cybersecurity, who may come up to one of us who have years in the game and can probably describe a good majority of these these domains and roles, maybe they're looking for us to fill in those blanks, fill in the areas to where they may have questions. Which I appreciate that an individual seeking out, thirsty for knowledge.
Touche.
But they need to come with a little bit more questions than just this. I would hope that individuals do a little bit more homework, because in today's day and age, there really are no excuses, especially when you have a plethora of knowledge at your fingertips. It wasn't like the days of old, where we were subjected to the Dewey Decimal System, and we didn't have the plethora of knowledge that at our fingertips.
You just type it in,
correct,
and you get everything you need just by the some keystrokes. So you're talking about homework, right? Here it is, right here. We're giving you some of this homework here. Start looking at this map and really understand. Okay, you want to do cybersecurity? Which domain?
And I really hate to really say it like this, but I can almost guarantee you, someone is going to look at this and say, "Well, that sounds pretty cool." Well, and that's how they get started.
That's how they get started.
Look, there may or may not be anything wrong with that, because you have to start somewhere.
Got to start somewhere.
And
got to start somewhere.
I understand that, but start somewhere, and if you don't like it, venture off into another area.
Boom. I like that. Words of wise. All right, let's dig back into the video.
That you could end up in cybersecurity, and is overwhelming, right? So someone in this entry-level world comes in here and says, "I want to do cybersecurity." The first thing you need to figure out is, okay, on what?
This is interesting. I'm not on this list. I don't see any incident response.
There is on the bottom left. There is security operations, and
there it is. Okay.
Incident response
Security
investigations, forensics. My team does awareness, as on the user education. Internally we have governance and risk assessment. We have career development. We have security architecture. I mean, so that's one of the things that as a person in this entry-level world, you need to figure out is, you're not doing cybersecurity, right? You're doing something within the field of cybersecurity. And in this article particularly, he kind of goes into, I'll scroll to that, some scenarios that can be built, and kind of some tasks that are expected, right? And I'm going to pick on one that is particularly, because I actually had to do it in my job, and I learned on the job, was preparing for an audit.
Oh. Everyone's favorite task.
It's right. But usually a junior entry-level person might end up in that team, right?
Right.
And they need to understand what it means to do that. And as a person hiring, that might be the thing that you want them to understand. Can you help during an audit?
Right.
And if they don't even know what that is, then you're immediately going to eliminate them, not thinking that maybe they do have skills they just never done an audit. And I think that's kind of what we get to in here, that it's not about the skill to do the audit, it's about the skills underneath that you might be able to bring them up to an audit level speed, right?
Right.
And then this one is very interesting because, it's things like understanding which kind of audit it is, right? Is there a SOC 2 audit?
There are different types of audits.
Security audit. What is the audit? So that's one of the things that you might, ask in an interview, like, have you done X type of audit, not just a security audit in general, because there's many different types.
Right.
And things like, anyway, this one was a good one. And then just, we have, let's say, 5 different places where we get blacklists from. We need to write an API for it. So, that might be simple programming, but that programming requirement is still there.
Right.
And I thought that's what was interesting is that, it's the gap is between the people that are asking the questions and the people that are applying for the jobs. And we need to find a way to meet, skills versus the job, because you might be able to teach the job if those skills are there. And I always go back to this cybersecurity career path, is cyberseek.org. It's very good because what they emphasize on is that you can be a cybersecurity person without what they're called feeder roles, right? So
let's pause it right there. So I I kind of want to piggyback on what he was saying about the audits, and he's talking about these feeder roles. What he just said was, you can't be a cybersecurity professional without first starting off in one of those feeder roles, right? And what he's describing was my journey personally, right? I started out in networking, which is on that list as one of the feeder roles, and I had a couple of different feeder role positions before I crossed over to cyber. And it was because I did traverse networking, system administrator, vulnerability management, help desk management. That experience prepared me for when it was my turn to prepare for audits and actually conduct audits. I can see how challenging it is for a junior technician, even right there, right? IT auditor. I can't understand how you can even understand what's required if you haven't had that experience of one of these feeder roles.
Yeah, well, when you get into a security component, theoretically what's asked of you is that you acquire several different skill sets that culminate and help support that security function. And
Good point.
And so you as an example are using the combination of things that you used as a vulnerability assessment technician, systems administration, networking. So you're using the different types of tasks that you performed in those roles, and now 100%. Those tasks are now rolled up as tasks within the security component, and so when we talk about cybersecurity, it's looked at as you have to have several years of experience within those feeder roles to eventually go into the security aspect. Now, let me put you on the spot. How many years did you perform those combination of those feeder roles before you got into the security aspect?
6 years.
Okay.
6 years. I for 6 years I worked networking, system admin. I ran a help desk for a few years, and kind of just ended up in cybersecurity. And then and I'll do you one even more. When I first got started, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really understand the job, and it took me probably 4 more years to really understand what was required of me as a cybersecurity professional. So now we're up to 10 years, just in my own personal journey.
Yes. You know, and I can go on to say that I started out as a Unix administrator and performing kind of a hybrid role where not only was a back-end technician administrator, I was also an individual that manned the help desk as well. So I then moved on to an ISO role.
Okay, got an ISO. Okay.
I moved on to an ISO role, and then I moved on to, and I was an Oracle database administrator.
Nice.
So when you look at all those things, those are all feeder roles until I actually hit the enterprise where it was more security. Right. So you could kind of see my journey. It's your journey.
Yep.
All those feeder roles that he talked about, how you use that and compile and aggregate all those skills that you and then use them in the security realm.
And for the uninitiated, ISO, Information System Security Officer, the last, I would say, 10 years of my professional cybersecurity career, I was an ISM, Information System Security Manager.
Correct.
And I leaned heavily on my ISOs to help me get this job done correctly, man. The ISM can't do it without the ISOs, man.
Right.
It's team effort. But again, even your journey, you just laid out that journey. About 10 years, right before you were really savvy.
Yes.
Yeah. And how critical was your help desk experience in that journey?
Very. It using a lot of soft skills. Listening. Active listening. being attentive, being empathetic to customer issues and problems and frustrations. And then, because listening, it goes both ways.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So being able to also listen and convey and understand to make sure that the individual is taken care of, and that way you repeat back to the customer what their actual problem is to try to understand, to better help them, right?
And you know what, that my help desk experience, it helped me out a lot too, especially with the audits, because when you're doing an audit, you're doing a lot of interviews, right?
Yes.
You're doing a lot of interviews, whatever list of security controls, checklists, whatever you're using, right? You have to, one, ask the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you have to use active listening skills to truly understand what's being said so that you can conduct the audit or prepare for the audit the right way, right?
Yes.
Man, they not knowing. Let's go. Let's keep it going.
So, networking, so some type of software development, or at least knowledge of understanding of that. Systems engineering, some risk analysis, some security intelligence. These are things that are prerequisites to an entry-level cybersecurity position. So saying that there are entry-level positions is kind of misleading, I would say.
Most people don't jump into cybersecurity as their first job. There's usually some other job in a related field, like software development or system administration or some networking type of thing. That's not necessarily cybersecurity in itself, but you get some experience in these related fields, and then you go into cybersecurity and apply that knowledge into that field. So it's kind of hard to jump in to cybersecurity right out of like college, so to speak. Usually there's some other in-between job before you get to it.
Because you need other things before you can even get to that
point. Right, to be really good in whatever cybersecurity track you take.
Right.
That's really, I never had this formulated in my mind, but just seeing what you put up there is really interesting to me, because I know myself and a lot of the people I've worked with, we had jobs either in networking or so I was a developer for 10 years before I ever did any of this. System administration is also another one. I don't really think they have it here. But having those skill sets and then pivoting into security is a lot easier when you have like a lot of good fundamental knowledge of those areas. And those are the kinds of things I look for people when they're coming in entry level. I want to know, all right, how much your networking background do you have? Do you understand how machines communicate with each other? Have you ever run Wireshark? Have you ever reassembled a stream and figured out what was going on here? What is your development background? Can you write simple scripts even so that we can do some automation of tasks or some security level functions? Those are kinds of things that I, like in an incident response role, look for people when we're interviewing people. So it's really interesting, though, that there's very few people who come right out of college and jump into cybersecurity. Not to say it doesn't happen, but having some other, training ahead of time or working in the field in some other respect can really help you along to be like a superstar in security.
All right, so I'm picking up on what he just said, right? He said it's very rare that someone coming fresh out of college is going to jump right into a cybersecurity role. What's your take on that, man?
Agreed. No, I would go to guess that your average individual has not aligned themselves to have practical hands-on experience, unless you are, and I appreciate these those individuals who may have outfitted their dorm room or their room with networks. You have nothing but switches and routers and different PCs. I appreciate you.
Yes.
And
if you do, you're awesome.
Yes. and or having those individuals who have done themselves some justice and sought internships to get some sort of hands-on practical type of experience to help them when they do graduate. Obviously, it bolsters your resume, gives you a little vote of confidence. So, absolutely needed. And then if you're not of what I just described, you're behind the power curve, and you're hoping that someone gives you a chance. And there are roles out there that, companies are willing to take on individuals and train them. But there comes the expectations of, hey, I have this shiny new degree and it's worth an astronomical amount of money that they feel, and then they get humbled when they finally get a job offer, and I'm not really sure where they're pulling the figures from, but when it's significantly less than what they feel. Because at the end of the day, what type of tasks can you perform?
100%. I don't know. Maybe some simple stuff. Data entry. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And to your point, right? Because I've seen that a lot. The confusion of, hey, I got my degree. Why am I having a hard time getting those roles I'm looking for? I'm only being offered entry level. Speaking of which, we did a video about that as far as someone I had a conversation with who had a master's degree but was only being offered entry level positions. We'll put the link down below so you can learn more about that. But you made an excellent point. It's about that practical hands-on experience, especially in terms of cybersecurity. Those are advanced level positions. A lot of recruiters that we've spoken to, they're recruiting and looking to help people get these positions, but they're expecting you to know what you're doing. I had a recruiter tell me there is no training once you get on the job. A lot of them have specifically said 8 years of experience for these different positions, and they expect that when you get hired, you hit the ground running.
That you're talking senior level type of experience with 8+ years. That's what it's all about nowadays. You're like you say, you're expected to hit the ground running. Yeah. So the senior level positions, there's really no room to train. The training ground is the years previous to hone your skills. But it's really up to you how far you want to extend your reach for another role, and so do your due diligence and get the skills that are required. Yes. Attain those skills. Yes. And so again, it could be a good match as to where an organization is willing to hire you. If you aren't 100% match, maybe they feel that you can grow into a role, and that is a thing. And so as long as you can perform the tasks necessary, and
can you do the job? That's the question. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Right. And
Cybersecurity.
And in this article, you can kind of tell, you can pick from the task and sort of understand like the kind of things that you could do on your own, right? So, again, like you said, maybe knowing how to write small scripts. Like you don't have to be a software developer, but you should be able to, do Python or Go and like be able to type something
right
to automate a
take one set of data, massage it in a script to output some other report.
Right.
That's like a very typical incident response kind of.
Be able to understand, protocols in general. You know what DNS is.
Right.
Things, just simple things that maybe they're not emphasizing in some programs, but that when someone is interviewing and looking for this talent, they might not understand it that well. I was telling Matt Kaiser, he's usually on the show, that when I'm interviewing for software development, the first thing I ask is, do you know what cross-site scripting is? And if the answer is no, then we have a problem.
Not right. They're not coding with security in mind. Right.
So I will give him I will tell them what it is and tell them that that's something that you should learn next time you go to an interview. But to me, I need them to already understand what it is before you are even in the
He said it.
Ballpark to be given a position, right?
Right, so, right.
And in this case, with cybersecurity, you just gotta find, and if you go to the Daniel Missler's site, he actually has a blog article about how to actually do this. So he walks through it, and it was very cool, and you can kind of pick things and how to become, from being a regular person all the way to becoming a security professional, and it's a very interesting article. But in general, I think, the skill gap is there because I don't think we're letting people understand that what the entry level is, right?
Right.
I guess that's my opinion on it, at least. You have any thoughts on it, Tony? I think you're a hiring manager, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And everything that was said, you know, what you said, what John said makes a lot of sense. Someone coming to a company wanting to get into cybersecurity, you need a background in something.
Right.
I feel that way. You can't just come in and say, you know, try me. You got to do some sort of development work or come from a different function within IT. John was talking about being a developer, and he did it for 10 years. The stuff that John works on,
there's that 10 years again.
Very heavy in that, and it's excellent for incident response. I came from the administration side, so I came from one vertical. You know, John came from another, but we were able to shift into the security realm based on our core foundation, our knowledge, and then start to evolve that into looking at security. You know, I went from making sure that servers were up and down to how do I harden them? How do I make sure that security controls on it work, like antivirus? And, you know, vice versa. John, with networking, how does the whole network function? How does DNS function? And then pivot into how to secure it, how to use your knowledge with those verticals and go into a security environment and use those to do cybersecurity work. So you're right with the entry level. You need other experience and some information within cybersecurity to make it effective. And I think it's just going to take time for that idea to actually be ingrained into when people are hiring for someone that's doing cybersecurity, because it's cybersecurity for what? Is it audits?
Right.
Is it hardening? Is it a security control? You know, there's so many different flavors.
Yeah, and
I like what he says. Cybersecurity for what?
Yeah.
I need to start saying that. People, hey, man, I want to get into cybersecurity. That's going to be my new response. Cybersecurity for what?
For what?
And they're probably going to look at, huh?
You know, some of the things that he was talking about, it made me realize that the question is out there: are individuals relying on organizations to teach them?
Ooh.
You come to because the military mindset is you put us in an environment and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But taking that, it's like the difference between proactive and reactive. I can learn it if you teach me. Versus, I've taken I've put my best foot forward and learned this on my own.
Yeah. Ooh.
Right. I think that there is a lot of individuals out there that they'll say it without saying it. Take a chance on me.
Yeah.
Teach me.
Try me.
I have an award-winning personality.
That's cool.
Right. But I always offer, what have you done to put yourself in the best position to land said role? Take a look at some of the job openings out there and ask yourself, have I taken advantage of all the free resources out there, the different tracks of training that you can expose yourself to? Have you invested in yourself via certifications? Right?
Yeah.
Isn't there a saying that we have? The best investment is what?
It's yourself.
Yes.
It's yourself.
The best.
Have you invested in it? Good point, man. You made a good point. I can see where companies and organizations are looking at, you want me to invest in you. How much of an investment have you made in yourself?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
You're on to something there.
Absolutely.
I like that. And the thing that screams at me as far as what does that investment look like? After talking to several hiring managers, several recruiters, a bunch of them said the same thing. Build your own lab and start clocking your hours of experience in your own lab at home. Yes. Are you committed enough to make that type of investment in yourself?
Our time serving in the military, when we used to have subordinates that lived in the barracks or dormitories, when we would have to do random inspections. It was very common when we went into our subordinates' rooms that you find these homemade labs.
Yep.
And you're doing backflips silently, saying kind of like, yes, because they're at home learning.
Yes.
They're at home breaking things.
Breaking it, fixing it.
Yes. And they're teaching themselves. They've went out and bought books. And
with no one telling them.
And they're taking different things and bringing it back to the work center as maybe fix actions.
Yep.
Different things to try, maybe running that through the approval process.
Yep. And I tell you what, man, when the mandate came down that we all had to get Security Plus, and I was networking. I didn't understand that stuff. I did bring home my own equipment, and I built my own lab. That's how I learned how to work on firewalls. Yeah. I had built my own firewall at home and just kept going through it and trying to figure it out so I could understand the material, because we had no choice. We had to pass that test.
Yeah.
And it wasn't when we went through technical training school, it wasn't part of the curriculum. So we had to learn it and prepare essentially on our own. And that's how I'm a hands-on person. I could not understand that stuff in that book unless I was able to touch it and feel it. And I did it myself. I built my own lab so I can understand firewalls and the ports and everything, right? And that's what these companies are looking for. They're looking for that type of commitment, tenacity. Can you do these tasks?
Right. And so you just have to ask yourself, what separates me from the next person? It's not so much where you went to school. That, depending on the hiring manager, that shouldn't matter. But what separates you from the next person?
Why you?
Exactly.
Why you?
Why you?
You should be internalizing that question right now. Why you?
Right. And so as we talk about these entry level positions and the different areas in security, what are you out there learning? What area in the different security domains do you want to make a name for yourself?
Yes.
And what type of things are you doing to get after those different tasks that are going to be asked of you?
100%. 100%.
Yes.
Let's go.
And one thing in a footnote in the article that I was looking at was that, in his explanation of why there's a skill gap, he mentions that there are some positions that you could get, right? So, and I was looking it up right after I read this, something like a SOC analyst. That is something that gives you a preview of everything that could be happening.
Right.
And you might not need to have that much experience.
And a lot of times we'll draw from our SOC analyst team to bring them into incident response or some other type of function. Like our SOCs are more tier one, kind of like seeing the stuff coming in and then trying to pitch it off to whoever can take care of it. But some of those guys, when they really step up, they're like, oh, this guy's pretty good, or this girl's pretty good. Let's bring them in, to the next level here.
Yeah, and
I want to pause right there, right? Because when I'm talking to people and they're asking me, well, how do I get the experience that these companies are looking for? I'm always telling them, go get yourself a tier one position. He even said it. They were referencing a SOC analyst as a tier one, but there are all types of different cyber IT roles, feeder roles, if you want to look at it that way, that have their own versions of a tier one. I myself started out tier one networking. Yeah. And I had to work my way up to that skill set of tier two to be able to handle things on my own without supervision looking over my shoulders and stuff like that. I had to work my way up to the point to where I can respond to the trouble tickets that were coming from the tier one help desk. Yeah. And then I was that tier two technician that if they had to escalate it to us, I was the one fixing it. But it took some time, man. I started tier one. Yeah. And then part of my journey was when they sent me to the help desk to run the help desk, I kind of did another move to where I went from tier one technician to managing a tier one function.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that it took some time and it was a journey.
It was a journey.
It was a process.
It was a process.
You're not going to, so you're saying eloquently, you didn't go from zero to hero.
I did not go to zero from hero overnight.
Overnight.
I mean, I did go to zero from hero, but it took about 10 years. Now, even in my feeder role, right? We'll use their verbiage, right? Even inside my feeder role, to become hero, let me see, to say I was an efficient network technician, it took me about 3 years. It took me about 3 good years to where I didn't need someone supervising what I was doing on the network before I was like, okay, I'm hero now. I'm network hero now. Dun, 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 dun.
No, yeah, I would have to. I'll agree with you there. The technical roles that I had, it took me right around myself 2 to 3 years to really master and get proficient, expert type of performing expert level tasks in those technical roles. 2 to 3 years each. Obviously, my ISSO role was more of a policies and governance, but I tend to pick up things of that nature fairly quick, and so when you add all that time up, you're looking at upwards of 10 years.
There you go. There you go. And so right here, this little journey we're having is the takeaway I want people watching this to have is that's great if you want to get into cybersecurity, but do not underestimate the importance and the relevance of a tier 1 position, because 9 times out of 10, you will have to start at a tier 1 position anyway. And like the gentleman said in the video, they're looking for those superstars amongst those tier 1 teams.
Yes.
Okay, that's a superstar. Let's help them upscale, and let's give those people those chances.
And being a supervisor of individuals on those, within those tier 1 roles, we want to back those individuals. We want to give them opportunities because I like to see people grow.
Yes.
These are the individuals we know we need to pluck them out of the tier 1 positions and put them into more significant roles and watch them grow.
Watch them grow.
Yes.
And I'm going to add on to that is take my job.
Yeah.
Take my job. Come get it. Come get it. We train our replacements so that we could take on other opportunities, right? And I take him as a type of gentleman who's looking for that same thing. Come take my job. So, because if you can take my job, if you're willing to, cut your teeth, get your hours in, pay your dues, right? At a tier 1 position, okay, now you're worthy of my time to train you, to replace me, so I can move on to different opportunities myself.
They say iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron,
That's
baby.
Right.
Ooh, I like that. Let's get back to it.
So for those that are already, they have a master's and their certificates, there are positions that you could look into, but unfortunately, there is still, that thing of it's not just entry level, right? So
sometimes you got to pay your dues in another related field
Just said that.
for a few years in order to gain some experience that you can apply to cybersecurity. Yeah.
Depending on how you want to, proceed with your career, you need to figure out, okay, it is cybersecurity, but what about cybersecurity? And I think that's what a lot of people leave out when they're trying to search for a job in cybersecurity is that, that's not it. There's more to it. And that's what's led us to this skill gap of people applying for jobs and hiring managers saying, well, you don't meet our qualifications. So I think, as an industry, we should try to figure out a better way to connect the two.
I agree. So, all right, I'm gonna share something that boils my blood, right? There's some fake news out there saying that you can go from 0 to cyber expert in 29 months. And the reason why that boils my blood is because, they're talking about paying your dues, getting experience. I shared that it took me about 3 years as a network technician to be efficient, right? And that was after technical training, on-the-job training, supervised work. You get what I'm saying? To where it was at a minimum. Matter of fact, once I got on the job, it was 36 months. And my training before that was 4 months. So it was about 40 months for me to be an expert in networking. Not just cyber, because cyber is the whole spectrum, right?
Yes.
So, and I say that to say, do not fall for the hype. Don't believe the hype. It will take you more than 29 months to become an expert in just one IT role. Not cyber, the whole spectrum, but one IT and cyber role. Would you agree?
100%. Even if you took the feeder roles that they had, and if you sat in each one of those feeder roles for 3 to 6 months a piece, you're probably over 29 months.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
But what have you learned in 3 to 6 months?
You learned just enough to break something. And I've broken things plenty of times, but that's how you learn, man. That's how you learn. I'm not a believer of after 29 months of just academic training, you're ready for one of these tasks. And I don't think any real experienced and savvy cybersecurity hiring manager will believe that either.
No. So I would just advise individuals to get a mentor, talk to an individual who's been in the industry, ask for a mentor.
Yes.
Don't be ashamed.
Where could someone find a mentor?
Well, there is a nice organization called the HDI South Central Texas Local Chapter, where they have brought individuals from the IT and cyber fields in government sector, private sector, academia, all in one setting to be able to share best practices, to share what the latest and greatest emerging technologies are.
I like
the different trends that we're seeing, and just fellowship. And so if you're looking for an organization to be able to tap into the years and years of experience out there in the different sectors out there, your HDI South Central Texas Local Chapter is a great organization where you can get your start and ask those questions, get fellowship, get mentorship.
Yes.
And they'll welcome you with open arms.
Oh yeah. So if you're in San Antonio and the surrounding areas, HDI South Central Local Chapter is your chapter, but there's local chapters all over. So if you're not in San Antonio and you believe, you know, cyber and cybersecurity is the pathway for you, check out your local chapter. Look HDI up. You'll find one nearby in your area. And that's a great place to start, man. So wrap us up and take us home, sir.
You know, so I hope that the tidbits of information that we shared resonated with you, and hopefully what you're taking out of this is to not cut corners. Pay your dues, put the effort and the energy in, take it seriously, because if you take it seriously, someone will take you seriously. And so you won't be behind the power curve, or you won't be stuck wondering what it is that you need to do to get hired. You'll be better equipped and better knowledgeable, be more knowledgeable in the actual cybersecurity domains that are out there. You'll be able to speak more knowledgeable and be more competent when it comes to those different aspects. And so put the work in. The last thing you ever want to do is to cut corners in this industry. So
no, I like that. No, thank you. So he just gave you the recipe. So rewind that and watch that again and get ready to put that work in. And if you're serious about it, you'll make it happen. Just understand it's going to take some time. Cheers to your success.